So the trade law is unique in the sense that it is a tax reform passed by the government when the country is not in crisis and the country is not merged in debt. So the proceeds from the tax reform is not to bring us to positive numbers. It's not to pay off our debts. It's really for infrastructure. And Lani talked about the collection of the BIR in trillions. I don't know how to count that. But the trade law is promising to deliver about less than 4 trillion additional tax collections in the next 4 years, which is going to be a bit of a challenge, as I explained to you, the next coaches of the train. So the train law is now out, and you probably felt the presence of the train because prices went up, a bit of inflation there. But then it's not yet done, because in train 1B, I think that's what they call it, the tax amnesties are coming. And there's going to be an estate tax amnesty. I'm going to talk a bit more about that later on, and a general tax amnesty. Right now, I hope there will be. I think the BIR Commissioner is still trying to really be convinced that it's necessary, but a lot is going on in the House and in the Senate about tax amnesties. Right now, where it's at is net worth times 5 to 8%, and that's the amnesty tax. That will give everyone amnesty, and the cut-off is still under discussion. It's either December 31, 2016 or December 31, 2017. And there's a lot of contentious issues on whether it should be 2016 or 2017. Of course, we're saying if you come out on 2016, then you're naked from the waist down, then you can be attacked on 2017, and why would you go into amnesty if the cut-off is 2016? Anyway, the amnesty is supposed to bring everybody, more people into the fold, and there's good reason to be under the fold. Why? Because the next package of the trade law is about the lowering of the corporate income tax from the present 30% down to 25%. I'm not yet that convinced about the formula on which it is presently based, because the formula on which it is presently based is savings on incentive costs. And that means they will rationalize the incentives, and I heard a lot of you are from the outsourcing industry here. They will rationalize incentives, remove some of those, refocus those incentives, and from the savings from those incentive costs, from that will come the lowering of the corporate income tax. If they use that, it's going to be a slow downhill for the corporate income tax rates. And I think that more reliance should be made on the expansion of the tax base rather than the incentive cost savings. If I don't take up the topic of the BPO in my talk, we can discuss that later. Although maybe I can say that the rate, those special rates of 5% and maybe the 10% tax, is going to be 15% net income tax. That's the initial projections there. Is the Philippines really going to lower its corporate income tax? I say yes. At the very least, 25%. Why? Because Vietnam is 20%, Cambodia is 20%, Thailand is 20%, Indonesia is 25%, and trying to go down to 20%. So when we indeed get to 25%, we're still late, because the others are already at 20%. And the real issue there is whether it will all be kept by corporate, or whether that can also positively impact the purchasing power of the employees if they share in those savings, adding to the purchasing power that they achieve thanks to the trade law package 1. So bear with me as I take up some details. I promise I won't take up too many topics, only those topics that I can remember. You know, everybody increased their take-home pay in the trade law. Yes. And I'm about to ask for a raising of hands. And the only persons that did not increase their take-home pay in the trade law are those earning 11 million or more annually. Kasama po yung mga bonuses ko doon. So those who are earning 11 million or more annually, please raise your hands. Because they're very shy to do that because the BAR is here, they might I won't dwell too much on that because the real question is whether the savings that you have on taxes can really offset the increase in the prices of the goods. Is it better to be an individual entrepreneur versus a corporation under the trade law? Well, not too promising because there's a change in the rules. Oops. There's a 3 million threshold where you can opt to be taxed at 8%. And the 8% is the total, presumably or conceptually, of the 5% income tax and the 3% percentage tax. So if you're an individual entrepreneur earning only 8 million, you can opt for the 8% and taxable only when your income is in excess of 250,000. So this is what I want you to understand. When you're an individual, you're still entitled to an optional deduction of 40% based on your gross sales or gross receipts. When you're a corporation, you're entitled to 40% optional deduction based on your gross income. So there's a way of a difference there because corporations are better off because you're able to deduct your direct costs before you're able to deduct, allowed to deduct another 40%. That being said, do not be overly excited because in the Train 2, they propose to reduce that to 20%. In other words, keep your receipts because you might just as well be using the itemized deduction. What car is within your budget within the train? And I only touched the car because everybody loves cars, even if it's traffic. I'll hold you in no further suspense. If only because of the excise tax increases, this would be the increase. If only. And you can see here that the most advantageous car to buy is pickup trucks. Even the luxury ones will go down in price. So I tried computing. Do you have BIOS here? I tried computing for the BIOS. So if you finance, for instance, the BIOS, finance that over a period of 5 years, the increase in your monthly amortization can only be between 350 to 400 pesos monthly. If you're taking a Fortuner, your monthly increase in a financed car purchase over a period of 5 years will be about 1,500 increase monthly. That's how I computed it. Of course, the interest rates can be lower. So enough advertisement for these cars because I'm not being paid. Trivia. Is iced tea in the restaurant subject to excise tax? You know why I use this question? Because we conducted a seminar, I can't remember what forum that was, and someone was running after me in the door for a very important reason and asked me, sir, please, is iced tea subject to sugar tax? Very interesting question indeed, but I'll tell you why it's interesting. Because if iced tea is not subject to excise tax because it's part of the service of the restaurant. Whenever you're served food in the restaurant, you're not really buying chicken or you're buying pakbet or kare-kare. You're really buying service. So you're not really buying goods or food. And the reason why this question is relevant is this. There's a point to the question that was being asked of me when I was going out of the room. I said, of course not, because that's restaurant, that's the service. So sir, how about it? The takeout from Jollibee and McDonald's, the takeout Coke from the Jollibee and McDonald's. You don't enter the restaurant, you just take out the Coke and go. And that got me to a bit of thinking. It was a legitimate question after all. So I consulted the Tax Reform Act. And the Tax Reform Act says, pre-packaged and sealed in accordance with FDA standards. So if McDonald's or Jollibee seals it and puts it in a canteen, of course, that's the only time that it will be subject to sugar tax. So apparently no problem, right? But why did these nice stores like SNR stop this bottomless soft drinks, these vending machines? You can go back and forth, and then one cup can be consumed by one Filipino family. Why did they stop that? Because of that, no joke. They stopped that because they may not be subject to excise tax on the sales of those, but on their purchase, they could be subject to excise tax on their purchase. So everything is taken into account. So enough of this trivia. I spent so much time on that. Can you sell property below zonal value without being subject to donor tax? Now this is a very important question because this is a question that before, especially during Commissioner Kim Henry's time, stopped many transactions. Can you imagine you're trying to sell a property, capital gain, capital asset for instance, subject only to 6%. Then when you're selling it because it's surrounded by squatted area or the area is not really performing well, you're selling it below zonal value, you're gonna get hit with 20% donor's tax on the difference. Now that is no longer going to be your problem. If it's a legitimate sale transaction, done at arm's length without any donative intent. So this is one of those things which is very positive under the Tax Reform Act. There are many applications of this. And corporate transactions, there will be mergers. And the BR before was saying that an upward merger because no shares were issued, that's subject to donor's tax. I'm sure my friends here don't really agree with that rule. But you know, whenever there's a legitimate business reason supporting a transaction, it couldn't be a donation. The simplest explanation I often use there is, how do you test whether a transaction has donative intent? How do you test? Is it because of the price? Apparently not. How do you test it then? If the transaction happens because of love, L-O-V-E. I'm not being corny here because I actually used that in a big meeting, deal meeting among more than a dozen lawyers, and it really brought home the point. Because if you're doing it for some selfish reason, say you're dropping some cash to the subsidiary, that's a subsidy, right? That's not a donation because that's supposed to help you get dividends out of your subsidiary. So if you're supporting someone because of a business reason, that's not a donation because that is supported by a business reason. Maybe some other tax will apply there, income tax maybe, but we can analyze, but not donor's tax nowadays. Anyway, the other thing that I'd like to say is that donor's tax has been reduced, as according to Lani, to 6%. And if income tax is 30%, if we have this old rule that lower than zonal value is subject to donor's tax, our lives will be happier. Now it's the reverse. Because if you sell it for less than sufficient consideration, you're only subject to 6%. But that is not the rule now. You look at the transaction, whether it's a sale transaction, and then the transaction, the proper tax will apply. Oh, another trivia. They say beauty has a price. Is it cheaper now to have a makeover under the train? So the issue here is, assuming that you get run down by a train and you did a surgery. So when is a makeover subject to excise tax? There's an excise tax of 5% under the train law whenever you do something to your face or your body. And I think just to bring home the point, if you remember this case in China, where this billionaire got married to this very lovely young lady, and their marriage bore a fruit, and the fruit was not very pretty. And so the husband complained. And then true enough, the wife had extensive surgery, and she was not the woman that he married, you know, and doesn't look anywhere near the woman that he married anyway. Which is also a very common practice in Korea nowadays. Whenever, before they get married, the husband will go to the house not to meet the parents, no, to get the album, the family picture, and to see whether, well, how did this lady that he's marrying look like before? And this is really a serious issue because whenever you're touching your face, it's like you're trying to achieve self-confidence. And if it's depressing you, then you're trying to cure a sickness, in a way. But the only surgery that will not be subject to excise tax is the non-invasive ones, and the invasive ones if they're trying to cure a function in your body or your face for that matter. So if they're only improving the looks of your face, they will be subject to a 5% excise tax. So I asked the doctor, hey doctor, because I have very little knowledge about surgery. So if you take fat somewhere from your body and then you put it in your lips, doesn't that invade the lips, and is that invasive surgery? No, that's not invasive surgery. Alam po ni Madam, sanay po sa surgery. Mamaya kung saan po kayo. That's the rule that I just discussed. Okay, let's go to some estate tax myths, and probably we'll cover a few birds with a common stone here. Myth number 1: survivorship clauses survives death. Now, the only reason why I raise this is because I've received a lot of consultations here with lawyers giving a contrary advice to our opinion, which I believe is the correct opinion. They're saying that if you have a survivorship clause, the property automatically transfers to the surviving heir or the surviving person in that arrangement without being touched by estate tax. Now that is wrong, and even if you go to the old law, if someone survives, well, the survivorship clause happens when you have a will, or it can be a arrangement with a bank. And the arrangement with the bank, for instance, you're joint depositors, so you're 50-50 owner of that bank account. So in the survivorship clause, when one dies and the property transfers to the other, you don't need special power of attorney, you don't need proof that you're an heir, the property automatically transfers. But with estate tax effects, and this is what I call death is the quicker draw than the contractual effect. Because when a person dies in a survivorship agreement, that property transfers to the estate of that person. And therefore the joint account becomes the estate owner and the surviving person. See, and if you are 5 in that joint account, and you're a parent and you have 4 children, in the survivorship clause, your share can transfer equally to them, or you can pinpoint your favorite child and transfer everything to your favorite child. That can also happen. Now, the beautiful thing about the trade law on estate is this. Firstly, estate tax is only 6%. And the other thing is, and before you cannot withdraw the cash, right? Because you need to prove that you settled your estate. So you show your estate tax clearance that you filed everything, etc. Now, you don't need to do that. You can take your cash tomorrow by simply paying the 6% on that bank account. Actually, you don't need to pay it because the bank withholds the 6%, and then you can take the cash automatically. So, no hindrance now on the withdrawal of the cash from the bank account. So the survivorship clause now fits quite nicely because it can transfer quickly the cash, but that 50% will still be subject to a 6% estate tax. Myth number 2, selling properties is better. Now we've always probably been advised that, benta mo na lang. I mean, just sell the property and get it over with. But the thing is this, in a sale of property among family members, it's not really an actual sale, right? I believe it's an actual sale if you pay for it. If your children pay for that property. So if the member of the family to whom the property is sold does not pay for that property, there are actually two transactions. Number one is a sale transaction, it's subject to capital gains tax, potentially. And number two is the donation transaction because of the condonation of the purchase price. So be careful about selling it and not collecting it. Under the current Tax Reform Act, the only thing you need to do is donate it. No more selling, because anyway, if you put your property in a corporation and sell the shares, the tax now is 15%, no longer 10%, 15% of the capital gains. Where if you donate it, it's 6% of the total property, which could be lower and more efficient. Third is no need to settle the estate, since the new estate tax rate of 6% is the same as the CGT and the donor's tax anyway. So what we're saying is this: you donate now, you wait for the settlement of the estate rather, and you get a deduction from your family home of 10 million. So 10 million in family home. And then you get another standard deduction of 5 million. Correct? Now let's say that you lived a long and healthy life. And so you chose not to donate that property, you're gonna wait until you die. Because estate tax is 6% anyway, it's not gonna go up. Because in Singapore there's no estate tax, so it's not gonna go up. Now is that wise? Now in a country which is quickly populating and real estate prices quickly going up, the market value of the property today will be so much lower than the market value of that same property 20 years after. In other words, it may actually be cheaper to push the title of the property today, donate it, rather than waiting for you to run out of bread. Skipping the succession can save tax. So what happens is that the son has something to inherit from the father, and because they're rich, they don't really need it. So the son says, this property will be inherited directly by my son, so the grandfather to the grandson. There's actually two transfers there. The two transfers to the son and to the grandson. And you can compress that into one transfer. Again, the magic donation. But you need to convince the grandfather to donate to the grandson. And the grandfather can be convinced if the grandson or the granddaughter is very sweet to the grandfather. So kailangan po ng konting langis. And the last myth that I'd like to discuss is no need to settle the estate tax if the properties stay within the family anyway. I put this because I received a couple of consultations where they did not transfer the properties because the properties stay within the family anyway, right? But one of the children married a daughter, married a guy who became very interested in the property. And now they have children, their children are 18. And their children are also very interested in the family. Big mistake of not settling the estate before, because you know your children, but you really wouldn't know their spouses. And it's really a rare gift to have the right in-law. Just before I give you what illness is probably common among senators and congressmen, and the answer is diabetes, high cholesterol, and hypertension, because under the new law, medicine or drugs prescribed for diabetes, high cholesterol, and hypertension will not be subject to VAT beginning January 1, 2019. And of course, if you have rheumatitis and gout, your purchase of medicine will still be subject to VAT. I took up the next coaches of the train earlier when I started, I chose these topics, but when we get to the open forum, you're free to ask your questions because I will not be alone. I will have a lot of friends with me. Thank you very much.